Have you ever heard a story so wonderfully pointless, so beautifully mundane, that it circles all the way back around to being profound? Well, settle in, because today we read diving into one of my all-time favorite pieces of forgotten history, the tale of the slow-melting snowman of 1904. Our story takes us to a tiny, quiet town nestled deep in the Norwegian fjords. The year is 1904, and Christmas is just around the corner. Like towns all over the world, this one was buzzing with festive energy. Families were baking, carols were being sung, and children, of course, were eagerly waiting for snow. When the first heavy snowfall finally blanketed the landscape in a thick layer of white, the townspeople went about their usual winter rituals. And as part of those rituals, a group of townsfolk decided to build a snowman in the central square. Now, this wasn't some grand, record-breaking snowman. It wasn't sculpted by a famous artist or decorated with jewels. In fact, it was almost comically ordinary. It stood at an average height, with a perfectly round belly and a slightly smaller head on top. Its eyes were made from two simple lumps of coal, scavenged from a nearby scuttle. Its nose was a carrot, not too long, not too short, just a carrot. And wrapped around its neck was a scarf knitted from various bits of leftover yarn, a patchwork of mismatched colors. It was, in every sense of the word, a completely unremarkable snowman. So unremarkable, in fact, that after the initial fun of building it, most people in the town simply forgot it was there. It blended into the winter scenery, just another part of the festive backdrop. Christmas came and went. The carols faded, the festive lights were taken down, and life in the small Norwegian town returned to its quiet, rhythmic pace. But the snowman remained. January arrived, bringing with it the deep, biting cold of a Scandinavian winter. Other, smaller snow creations in people's yards had long since succumbed to the occasional sunny day or gust of warmer wind. But not this one. It just stood there in the town square, its coal eyes staring blankly ahead, its yarn scarf a small splash of color against the endless white. As the weeks turned into a month, people started to notice. It wasn't a sudden realization, more of a slow, creeping awareness. A shopkeeper might glance out his window and think, he's still there. A mother walking her children to school would point and say, "Look, our Christmas snowman is holding on." It became a quiet, shared observation. There was no fanfare, no big discussion. It was just a fact of life in the town. The snowman was still there. February rolled in, and the snowman became a silent landmark. It was a reference point. "I'll meet you by the old snowman," someone might say. Or, "I lived just 2 streets past the snowman." It had shed its identity as a Christmas decoration and had become a permanent, if temporary, resident of the town. Its ordinariness was its most defining feature. It wasn't melting, it wasn't changing, it was simply enduring. This is where the story takes a turn from being just a weather anomaly to something more. The snowman's stubborn persistence started to mean something to the people. In a world that was rapidly changing, with new technologies and shifting societal norms, this simple figure of snow was a symbol of constancy. It represented a kind of quiet defiance against the inevitable march of time. Children would occasionally pat its snowy side on their way home, leaving little handprints that would soon be covered by a fresh dusting of flakes. Teenagers, who at first found it boring, started to see it as a quirky part of their town's identity. The elders would nod at it with a knowing smile, as if sharing a secret with an old friend. The snowman wasn't doing anything, but in its stillness, it was doing everything. It was a comforting presence, a silent guardian of the winter. As March approached, the first signs of spring began to whisper through the fjords. The air lost some of its sharp bite. The sun lingered a little longer in the sky each afternoon. And for the first time in months, the townspeople started to look at the snowman with a sense of impending loss. Its time was coming. The melt began subtly. The edges of the coal eyes started to blur. The carrot nose drooped ever so slightly. A single, slow drip of water would fall from the tip of its twig arm, a tiny tear for the departing winter. The process was incredibly slow, almost imperceptible. Each day it was a little smaller, a little less defined. The perfectly round belly began to sag. the head tilted at a sorrowful angle. Instead of ignoring it, the townspeople now watched it with a gentle fascination. They were witnessing the end of an era, however small and strange that era might have been. The daily melt became the town's main topic of conversation. Did you see? His scarf has slipped down to his belly, one would say. I think his head will be gone by tomorrow, another would reply. Finally, the day came. After weeks of slowly shrinking, of gracefully giving way to the changing seasons, all that remained of the snowman was a small, lumpy pile of snow, the two coal eyes, the wilted carrot, and the damp, multicolored scarf lying beside it. Spring had officially won, but the story doesn't end there. Instead of just letting the memory fade, the townspeople did something remarkable. They gathered in the square. It wasn't a formal ceremony, just a quiet assembly. Someone picked up the scarf and hung it on a hook inside the town hall. Someone else pocketed the coal eyes and the carrot, perhaps as a keepsake. They stood there for a few minutes in the gentle spring sunshine, looking at the damp patch on the ground where their snowman had stood for so long. They held a modest farewell for an ordinary snowman. This event, one of the most uneventful in the town's history, became one of its most cherished traditions. It was a celebration of things that last, a tribute to quiet endurance. In a world that often values the spectacular and the loud, they chose to honor the simple, the steady, and the silent. The snowman of 1904 taught them a lesson, that sometimes the most meaningful things aren't the ones that make the biggest splash, but the ones that simply stay. The ones that offer a quiet, comforting presence through the long, cold winter and gracefully make way for the spring. It's a strange little piece of history, isn't it? No drama, no conflict, no grand conclusion. Just a snowman that took its sweet time to melt. And yet, there's something so deeply human about it. It speaks to our desire for stability in an ever-changing world, and our ability to find meaning and beauty in the most ordinary of things. So the next time you see a snowman, maybe you'll think of this story. Think of the quiet town in Norway and the simple figure of snow that became a local legend, not because of what it did, but because of what it didn't do. It didn't melt. At least not for a very, very long time. Thanks so much for watching and sharing this little journey into the past with me. If you enjoy stories like this, the hidden gems of history, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring more of these quiet, wonderful tales to light. We'll see you in the next one.